بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله وكفى، والصلاة والسلام على من اصطفى نبيه محمد عليه أفضل الصلاة وأتم التسليم. نبدأ بإذن الله اليوم الثاني من فعاليات ملتقى التميز البحثي بورشة عمل بعنوان Library Role in Improving Institution Scholarly Communication, presented by Mr. محمد باعيسى, Dr. نيفينا تومك, Mr. جرينز. So please find it right here.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أولا نشكركم لحضوركم اليوم، نشكر الدكتور غسان واللجنة التنظيمية لدعوتكم الكريمة. يسعدنا إن شاء الله أن نكون معكم في خلال الساعتين القادمة لورشة العمل زي ما تفضل الدكتور بعنوان Library Roles in Improving Scholarly Communication and Impact، وكلها لها علاقة طبعا بالريسيرش اكسلنس. المحاضرة والوركشوب ورشة عمل راح تكون باللغة الإنجليزية، بس في طبعا أجهزة ترجمة في الخارج إذا كان في أحد يحتاجها. Okay. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Welcome everyone and good morning. So our workshop today is about scholarly communications and how an institution can improve the services and how we can improve the impact of our scholarly outputs. My name is محمد باعيسى. I'm the manager of preservation and digital services at King Abdullah University of Science and Technology. I work in the library. I'll be joined today with my two colleagues, Dr. Nيفينا, she is a subject specialist and a senior librarian also, and Mr. أ.دارلي, he's our repository lead, and we will talk about different aspects. We promise we'll try to make it an interactive sessions, so there will be time for questions, and also we will have some quiz for you guys, and we will have some also gifts related. All right. So the Slido, if you can scan this barcode, I don't know if you can scan it from here, or you can just type slido.com and enter this code. There will be 2-3 simple questions just to understand our audience. And we will use the same link for other questions and later on the presentation, so you may have it open in your browsers, in your mobile, and then it will change once we get into the slides. Okay. So the first question is, what is your role in the institutions? Are you a librarian? Are you students? Are you administrators? Or maybe others? Okay, see this is changing depending on the answers coming. Go to the next. Next question. What are you hoping to learn today with this workshop? If you can just write 2 words, 1 word, whatever you think you would like to get out of this workshop. Okay, one answer, improving communication, research, great, it's coming. Resources, great. how to make the research more visible. Great. Citation, no expectation, that's better. Thank you very much, guys. This is really helping, and hopefully we will touch on most of these points throughout the presentation or workshop today. Great, so starting our workshop with a basic definition. What is scholarly communications? There are many definitions of scholarly communications. We try to find, okay, what is the most simple or straightforward answer to these questions? ACRL, American or Association of College and Research Library, they developed this definition in 2003 about the scholarly communication, and they simply say it's a system through which research and other scholarly writings are created. This is the first step. There should be some outputs created as the research. It could be your thesis, it could be your papers, it could be your reports, something that's right out of research. And it's evaluated for the quality. It could be through your advisor committee or for thesis and dissertation or peer-reviewed systems. And then disseminated means it's been discovered and people can access that work by other scholars, and then preserved or archived for future use. This is a simple definition of scholarly communication, and I'm sure there are many definitions that we can agree on scholarly communication. UNESCO, on the other hand, they say scholarly communication is the main business of researchers. Is to communicate, is to discover something and then communicate it with the scholar communities and then expand or build on each other's. This was a nice poster from 2015. In this poster, what it was trying to develop is, if we think about the life cycle of research outputs, okay, think about papers, think about conference proceedings, think about reports. This mostly what you will be doing, discovering information. You will go to your library and you'll start reading your articles and finding information, and then you will start analyzing this information and start writing your papers, and then publish it in some platforms, and try to increase the impact by outreach, and then try to measure the assessments or the impact of this research. In each stage, you will be using a lot of tools. So in these diagrams, there are 101 tools that was captured between 2011, I think, to 2015. And I'm sure there are hundreds more today of tools that we can use at different stages. But just to say that there are so many tools that we are using every day in finding information, in analyzing information, in writing our works, and then in publishing it. And I think now with the internet and with the social medias, we are changing, or we are seeing a transition in terms of how scholars are communicating their research. And then we try to measure the impact. So there was citation, and we will look at that in more details. And now people are trying to assess more. Citation takes time before you get to know exactly how's the impact of your research. But if you look at other means like Mendeley or news and social media platforms interactions, then you can see that an early indicators of how your work has been perceived by other scholars from your community. This is also another interesting diagrams, trying to compare, okay, what in the traditional way, and they assume that many or some of you, maybe most of you know, are familiar with Web of Science, for example, and say like, okay, for the traditional search, people will go to Web of Science and find information. And then they will use tools like SPSS to analyze the information that they created or they collected, and then they will start writing that information. Normally they will use just a Word file, simple Word file to start with and writing their papers. And then they will try to publish it. And in this example, we select one of the top journals, Nature. And then they will try to increase the outreach using like something like researcher ID. And then they will try to use some tools for assessments. And they try to develop different workflows of how the scholarly communication could go through life. And you could see that innovative way, for example, using Mendeley's, using Overleaf, using new tools like Figures or platforms like Figures for publishing, and Altimetrics for analyzing or assessing the impact of the work. So if we want to summarize, scholarly communications outputs, it could be grouped into two main groups, and now we could say third groups with the open science. Scholarly publishing is a traditional normal platforms for publishing. You go to the journals, you go to proceeding, and you submit your papers to publish. Or there is what is they called gray literatures. Gray literature normally is the research outputs that's not being shared. Think about the reports, think about lab notes, think about things that you do or during your research that you don't normally or formally share it through publishing platforms. And now with the increased usage of open science, there are many platforms also to share your research outputs. Something like data that you have been collecting throughout your research. This information is very important. We see a trend that in people are really publishing the data that they are collecting. It's not only because of the reuse, but people to evaluate your research. So if I conclude that in my paper I discover something based on the information that I analyzes, and another researchers want to check that or evaluate that, then they should have a way for them to redo my method in the data that I collected, and they get the same result. So there was a need of data publishing. So these are the new, or you could say, the normal outputs of scholarly communications. Mostly, if we look at the first one, there is an issue around that, which is a copyright. Okay, you create your works, right? And you own it. I create something, I own it. If I publish it with any publishers, I'm giving them something, right? So what is that? I'm transferring my works to them. So what is the agreement of transferring that works to them? Okay, what is my right and what's their right? So that's very important. And I think that will be taking us to the next sections of the introductions about copyrights. But before that, we will go another quiz just to test in your understanding of the copyrights. My colleague Darrell, he is a repository lead, will take the next part about the copyrights. After the questions, Darrell?
Yeah, go ahead and do this one question. This is just to get us all on the same page for what is copyright. And this is part of the quiz, so we have a couple questions through the presentation, and then at the end we'll have a few review questions. So, apparently, not many of you got to fill in your answers. I wonder if we can give you more time. Yes, let's give you a little more time so more people can put in their answer here. All right, great. So, this is important to understand what is copyright and what does copyright actually protect. So the most people here, they said ideas are what is protected by copyright, but actually copyright is only protecting the output, the creative work. So an idea that is not fixed in a written paper or an image or a video or an audio, if it's not fixed in some form, it's just an idea in your head or communicated to someone, this is not protected by copyright. Copyright is really protecting these creative works that are fixed in some way. It also doesn't protect the facts and the data in the work. So if someone publishes a paper, they have a lot of specific pieces of facts, maybe a table of data. This is not protected by copyright. The actual data can be reused by someone else without conflicting with copyright. But it's the creative element of the work that is really being protected. And inventions are what is protected through the patent system. So they're protected through a very different arrangement. Okay, I just wanted to make sure we're all on the same page about what copyright is and what it protects. And then I'm going to introduce a little bit about how maybe we imagine copyright works in general, and then how it works specifically in scholarly publishing, which has a lot of variety, but there are some general things we can say, and then how we'll talk about how that publishing system is changing. Oops. So this is the scores for the quiz. So we'll just keep going as we have more questions later on in the presentation to see who is getting ahead in the quiz. So when we talk about copyright and why governments have made these laws that give us copyright and protect our works so that others cannot just make copies of things and resell them, generally we have this picture. And in some parts of publishing, this is kind of how it works. The creators create content, they work through a publisher to sell the content to users who pay for it, and then the creators earn money directly. So I sell more books, or if I'm producing a textbook, maybe I sell more textbooks, and I will get royalties, I will get some direct financial incentive, reward from my work. But normally in the scholarly publishing system, this is not how it works. The professors who write the works that are published as journal articles don't get paid every time someone reads the journal article. Rather, they get there's a more indirect system of reward, and there's a more complex relationship in terms for copyright. So for the last, like starting in the 80s and 90s, as we moved to more digital publication, and we had this method where publishers were saying, the way for us to really be able to pay for our services is for us to own the copyright of the publications, and for that we need the authors to transfer the copyright to us, the publisher, and in exchange we don't pay the creators for their copyright, but we provide these services to them that they don't pay for directly. So they manage the peer review, they do copy editing, and depending on the journal and the publisher, there can be a lot of services that are provided to the authors for free, right? And so that's really an important part of how the journal system is working. But then the publishers do need someone to pay them. And so this has been traditionally through the library subscriptions to publishers. Then the library has users who can only read what that library has paid for. They can't read other things that are not paid for by the library. And those users will read the work, they will cite it. That citation is used as the measure of impact of the work, which is used by the university or the funder to decide, okay, who should be promoted. So the point of this diagram is to say it's a complex system and it works pretty well, okay? We know, okay, for the individual researcher, I'm not going to get direct financial benefit from selling my work. It makes much more sense for me to transfer my copyright to the publisher, and the publisher will be the one selling the work. So that system works well, but it has some complications and some things that are not satisfying to the author. So for example, maybe there are lots of people who don't subscribe to this journal and they want to read my articles, and I want them to read my articles. So how can I get them copies if the publisher is the only one who's allowed to distribute copies, right? And even the copyright transfer process, if I want to reuse something from my own article in my later work, I have to get permission from the publisher because I'm no longer the holder of the economic part of the copyright. I've transferred that to the publisher, and so this can be frustrating for authors who want more people to read their work. It can be frustrating for universities who also want more people to be reading their work, to feel that it's being held by the publishers who will only let certain people access it if they can pay. So that's how we get to this kind of new area of open access. And Mohammed will come to talk really about what we are doing at KAUST in relation to open access. Actually, we're going to talk about it a lot.
All right, thanks, Sal. So we hope now we have a better understanding of the copyright, okay, and how important is the copyright. So open access, we didn't have a slide for open access. I hope we had that, so we could see what is our understanding about open access before and after. So simply, what is open access? Open access is a movement. It started in, I think, 1990s by the universities. Exactly to address the problem that Darrell was just describing about the copyright. We, and mostly, I mean, like, if you today here, professor especially, you are working KU, right, in King Abdulaziz University. So you are employees of King Abdulaziz Universities. Your research that you conduct in King Abdulaziz University is being funded by the university, and then you produce that work, and then you give it to the publishers, publisher publish it, and then to use that work by another colleagues from King Abdulaziz University. King Abdulaziz University has to purchase it or has to subscribe to that work again. So that is how the relation works. So the university fund the work of the researchers, and then they publish that work, and then to reuse it by students, by professors, or by anyone else, they need to subscribe to that work again. So that was the idea behind movement of the open access movement. Not only to address this issue, but there are many countries and universities that cannot afford the prices or costs of journal subscriptions. I think we are lucky here today at KAUST or at King Abdulaziz University. You have a very rich resources provided by the library. I think most of you or all of you get access to Saudi Digital Library. So that's not coming for free. Someone is paying for that. And what if you are not affiliated to King Abdulaziz University? Just imagine. And you want to access the same resources. Your friend will be Google Scholar, right? To find that works. So, and you will be hoping that this work will be available somehow. So with this movement, I have this definition from Peter Suber. So he is a professor at Harvard University, and he is one of the pioneers and leaders of open access. He tried to give a very simple definition of what is open access. Say that make researcher literature available online without price barriers and without most permissions barriers. So Darrell was talking about if you want to reuse your work, your own work, you need to get a permission for that, right? Or you need at least to cite it, the other previous work by you. So open access is to be free from this price barriers or permission barriers around the research outputs. And then there are many ways how we can do it. And continuously, and you will see at the end of the workshop today, my colleagues Nيفينا will talk about a very innovative way by universities trying to address the issue around open access. But how it simply started is that university said, okay, we want to go for open access by having a copy of our works available in our platforms. But we cannot use the publisher version of the works, we will use a different version of that works. And this is normally called green open access. Green open access, you continue to publish however, wherever you would like to publish with any publishers, but a copy of that works will be owned by the university. If you're familiar, I'm sure most of you are familiar with the publishing, like the stages of your journal articles. So when you draft the work, you write your works, that is a preprint version of the works, before any peer review process, before any editing. You just type or completely your articles and you want to submit it. That's called preprint. And then you submit it to some journals and they give you feedback. So they do, or they did the peer reviewed. So some other researchers read your works and they ask you for more clarifications. And then you address those questions. And once you do that, the version of the article is now different. It's called post-print version or author manuscript. So that is exactly the final version, but still not yet edited in terms of any language or format, for example. And that is mostly the copy that we try to collect in the green open access, the author manuscript or the post-print version of the articles. And then when you publish it, the publisher do the English editing, they do the format editing, and that's a publisher version. The last version of the article is a publisher version. And that's normally what will be available on the publisher platform. So just make it short. Green open access is to talk about author manuscript mostly. Sometimes it's also referred to preprint, but it could be, mostly it is about the author version of the articles. And at KAUST, when we talk about KAUST open access policy, it is a green open access policy. University does not pay anything to get a copy of the works of professors and staff affiliated to KAUST. And then journals and publishers, they tried also to find a way, okay, how can we make the open access works? They said, okay, we will publish your work, but if you want it to be open access, you need to pay. They charge different prices, could be like 2,000 USD, 1,000 USD, depend on the journals, and we will make it available. The publisher will make it available as an open access through publisher platforms. So that mostly is called gold open access. So there are other types of open access other than green and gold, but this is, I think, the most used one. So when you publish, sometimes they say, do you want it to be an open access? And if you select that, then you need to pay the cost. Either you or your institution or your funders need to pay that. So that's mostly what's meant by gold open access. And then later, especially in 2007, I think, around that time, MIT and Harvard, they adopted the green open access policy as an institution. And then many universities from around the world, they start adopting this open access policy. And it continues until today, and hopefully in the future, the universities are adopting an open access. So there was a need to analyze, is there an impact? Okay, I'm publishing with a normal art journal, traditional publishing methods. So is there any advantages of doing a green open access or gold open access? So there are many studies around that. So this is one interesting study. I think it was trying to give some good analysis of impact of open access. So I know it's not readable, but there is a link, and this will be shared with you guys if you are interested to read more about the articles. But very simply, what they looked at the different research discipline. Okay, at agriculture, at science, at technology, at physics, at chemistry, so biology. And they say, okay, let's compare the impact of the normal traditional publishing, and let's compare the impact for the gold open access, and let's compare the impact of the green open access. And you could see the last column in the green open access. There is something, yesterday we talked about it in the keynote, it's called impact factors, or field weight citation impact factors. So they use that criteria to assess, it's clearly that the open access, gold and green, and especially green, has a huge impact on how your work is being used. Simple, if more people can access your work, imagine if more people can access your work, then more citation or you can get for your work. Very simple. So in 2014, King Abdullah University of Science and Technology, KAUST, adopted a university-wide open access policy, a mandated open access policy. And we talked about it yesterday a little bit in more details during our keynotes. So simply, what does that mean? Every researchers, every students, every staff member of KAUST who publish works at any journals, they have the freedom to select what journal they want to publish, but they must submit a copy of that article, an author version or a post-print version of that article to the library. And Darrell and the team of the repository, they are managing this on a daily basis. So we are collecting what's been published by KAUST, and then we organize it, and then within the repository.kaust, if you look at the repository.kaust, you will find most of our publication available online for free. In the last 3 years, we have been seeing an increase compliance. We are not yet 100%, but I think we are in a good increase. So I think we are above 80% of compliance. So 80% of total publication from KAUST are available online for free for anyone to use it from anywhere in the world. And as a result of that, we are increasing the citation of our institution outwards. We are increasing the impact of our institution outwards. And I think we can pause in here for a minute. If you have any questions, before we go into a little more details about what are the communication or other scholarly communication services. All right. I know we don't have mics, but feel free if you have questions, or maybe we have a mic. Okay. So again, just remember this is a workshop, so it's an interactive one. You don't need to have a very formatted questions. It's about the scholarly communication. All right, I think there's a question there in the middle.
Thank you for the valuable information. I have just a tiny question. Is the open access the same, like you have to pay extra fees than the publishing article, like the one that you pay when you want your article to be published, or it's different?
It is the same. It's one type of open access. So there are many different ways how you can do the open access. So one of the way that you just described is called gold open access, where you need to pay to the publishers to make the work available online. Yes, that's one way of how you can do the open access.
And it's going to be like available the whole, like, for eternity. Not, you don't have to pay annual fees.
No, it's not an annual fees. It's one-time payment. You do it to the publishers, and then they make your work available online. It should be for forever, as long as at least the publisher exists.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? Well, if you have a loud voice, you can just say it. You don't need a... there is a mic. Sorry.
This is Dr. Ahmed Abu Talib from Jazan University. Thank you so much for a nice presentation. I would just like to ask, in your open access KAUST library, do you have both open access papers and non-open access paper so people can get the access to your work, either is it open access or not? And do you have to arrange with the publisher for non-open access papers?
Thank you, that's a good question. Would you like to handle it, Dar? Okay, great. So yes, at the repository, at the KAUST repository, we collect everything published by CAUS, metadata. So we have 100% metadata of everything published by CAUS, up to date. So this is changing. So, and then we have 80%, almost 80% of the collected information is open access, okay? And then within that open access, there might be some set of items that's under embargo. We in the library take care of the copyright. So most of the publisher, they allow the green open access, most of the publisher, but they have a different conditions. Some of them ask you to embargo the work for 6 months. Some publisher will ask you for 12 months. Some publisher ask you for 18 months or 24 months. It depends on. So that's what the repository team do. They check what is the publisher agreement, or what's the publisher policy, sorry, for that, and then they make it available according to that policy. We try not to violate any policy. But if you come to the practices at the CAUS, we have a mix. Like some researchers, they do a gold open access because when they receive a fund, they request at the beginning that, okay, I want part of this fund to go for the open access, gold open access. So they also publish in gold open access, and I think part of that will be covered by my colleagues, Dr. Nيفينا, when she talked about the transformative agreements. So we have different practices, but everything collected in the repository, with the full text, we try to make it open access. We are not 100%, but hopefully we will soon. Okay. I think we can move to the next. Okay, so we talked about scholarly communications, we talked about copyrights, we talked about a lot of components of scholarly communications. And we have a university library, so mainly, but there might be other also units within the university that provide some sort of services to support the scholarly communication. So if you think about the workflow of creating research outputs, from the moment that you decide you have an idea and you want to do some research around that idea, so you start by collecting information around that ideas, right? You want to see what others think about what you want to research. And then that phases, we call it a creation. And there are many services that should be provided in the universities to support you at that stage. For example, like you go to KU library website or Saudi Digital Library, or you go to Google Scholars, you need to find an information, and then you start drafting your works. During your writings, you need to manage your reference, right? You need citations. So you use tools for citation management. You may use EndNote, you may use Mendeley, or any other tools. So this is one of the services that you need at the creation of your works. And then you want to check that you are not copying a lot of others or citing a lot of others' works. So you need to do a plagiarism check of your works. And some institutions, they are also providing some collaborative, interactive kind of writing tools. For example, Overleaf. I'm sure some of you are familiar with Overleaf. Or you are using just Google Doc, or you are using SharePoint, if you have other co-authors that you want to work together to write your papers. So that are the tools needed at the discovery or at the creation stage. And then when you start to publish, you want to publish your works. I know Darrell, and again, all these services that I'm talking about now will be discussed in more details in a later slide. So don't worry if you are not familiar with some of the phrases, we will try to touch on in the coming slides. Then you have your papers ready. You have to create your ORCID ID. Don't worry if you don't know ORCID ID, so Darrell will touch on that. When you publish, the publisher will create a DOI for your works and another identifiers. Or it could be your institutional repository create that DOI. And again, you need to do copyrights, right? You need to transfer that agreement. So at our library, we do have a guidelines to help our researchers better understand the copyright and better select the copyrights. But again, they are free to select what they think they should be selecting. And then you want to disseminate that works, right? You want to publish, you want to share it. And normally that's through publisher platform, through Google Scholars or institutional repository, or sometimes it's a discipline type or focus type of repository, special kind of repository, subject repository you call it. And then you find the works for others. They need to find your works. So you need to make sure that the platform that you have used to publish your works is well discovered and well integrated with other discovery tools. And at the end, you want to assess the impact of your works. Again, we talked about the citation, but there are many other ways that you can assess or get a kind of indication how your work has been perceived. So, for example, altimetric tools, which can measure the social media impact, which can measure news impact, which can measure other aspects of impacts of your research outputs. Again, we'll touch on those in more details for each services that we think it will be important for you today to learn about. And feel free to ask questions if we haven't covered any. Nيفينا, so she will take you up. Please, go ahead.
So assuming I transfer my work to a publisher, right? And then I'd like to use this work. So do I have to cite myself?
Yes. You need to cite your works because, again, that is a different work you want to cite. Okay, it's a good question, and it's really important to understand it. So my colleague Nيفينا will just talk about discovery tools. So Nيفينا, please.
Thank you, Mohammed. So you can see from all these tools that now libraries' role is transforming. So with my slide, we will go back to basics, so to say. So more and more libraries are supporting publishing. So we need to know about copyright, we need to know about publishing. This is completely new role for the library. But this slide is like about discovery services. This is what we are doing for a long time. So, and now we will explain all the services that KAUST is providing. This is how we do in KAUST. So in KAUST, for discovery, our main tool is this OneSearch. It's our electronic catalog. It's based on Salmon software from ProQuest. In your libraries, maybe you have some different softwares for this. So if we have a new faculty or new student, and if they're asking how should they access resources, how should they use library, our answer is like, you can use, of course, our OneSearch. This is like number one. Then you can also access our resources through Google Scholar. And in KAUST, all the resources that we have as KAUST are linked to Google Scholar. So they can, their first point of access could be Google Scholar, could be OneSearch, and also Web of Science and Scopus. These are two famous index databases. Sometimes they can start their searches from there. So these three are basic discovery tools in KAUST. With this, we have more, but just to mention these two, Browsing is a platform where you can search for articles, so go through different journals that we have. And just to make sure, so still we have subscription. We are paying for so many resources. So it's not that all that we have is open access. So still small portion is open access. More of this we're paying for subscription to journals and books, of course. And part of these are open access. And we will, so you know we have repository, and also we are doing some agreements for this gold open access, and we will talk more about this. So Browsing is for searching for or browsing our journals that we have subscription or open access journals to. And also very useful tool is repository, because if I'm new to KAUST, I'm a new researcher, I would like to know what was going on there, so I would go to KAUST research repository and check my area, for example, there. Or I'm a student, I'm preparing my thesis, I would like to see what other people were doing in my area. So this was service number one. scholarly communication service. Service number 2 would be plagiarism. Plagiarism is very important, and it's really connected to copyright and author's right. So in KAUST, this is the services that we are providing. So first one is we have a mandatory course on our learning system Blackboard. It's mandatory for all the students, and it's called Plagiarism and How to Avoid It. So all of them, like first semester, they need to go to pass this course if they want their stipend, so it's for all of them. Then with this also we have plagiarism checker tools. These are 2 different softwares. One software is called Turnitin, and this is mostly for thesis and dissertations. This is for students. And Authenticate is also the software, but this is more for researchers when they are publishing. So what is the difference? They are checking against the same databases, Turnitin and Authenticate, only that Authenticate works different, it's a little more expensive. So we have these 2. Also, we are giving training sessions about plagiarism, how to cite, when to cite, and about the copyright and all this that you need to take care while you're writing. Then also about how to use citation managers, and we are giving online help. We have chat service about all these questions. So Citation Manager, it's a very useful tool, and now there are hundreds of these tools on the market, but it's a decision of the university which one you're offering. So some of universities, they're offering 1, 2, 3, so to support to which of these you're offering. So in our case, it was first EndNote. EndNote is commercial service, we are paying for EndNote, and already many of KAUST faculty are using this and some KAUST groups. So we have EndNote, Zotero. We are promoting Zotero because Zotero is open source. It's also citation managers. So usage of all these 3, there are some differences. And we are also advising our student for their case, which would be the best citation manager to use. Mendeley, it started like it's more like better for sharing because it started as a social network. So these are 3 citation managers that we are offering support for in KAUST. Next slide would be on Daryl, and we are just continuing with our scholarly communication services.
Yes, so when we talk about the writing process, obviously a lot of writing people do on their own, and there are so many tools people can use that are free. They can use Google Docs, Google Drive, OneDrive from Microsoft. But there is a place also for the university to provide support. The one here that's supported by the library in KAUST is Overleaf, which is a tool for writing in LaTeX. So it's particularly good for lots of scientific publications. And it's also a free tool. But what we had in KAUST is faculty who wanted to do more collaborative writing, and in the free version of Overleaf, there are limits on like how many people can edit one document and how big the documents can be. And so they wanted, some of the faculty were subscribing on their own for the members in their research group, paying Overleaf to have the professional subscription. And then we decided as a university, actually, we should provide this for everyone so that they can have large numbers of collaborators working on their documents in Overleaf. I also listed here SharePoint and GitLab. SharePoint is like the Microsoft Office 365 document sharing environment, which in KAUST is provided through IT. GitLab is a writing tool, but it's a writing tool for software, for development. There is also, like GitHub, a free version of GitLab, but in KAUST, IT services has an internal GitLab instance that they use for developing the IT services in KAUST for the software that they are developing in KAUST, and it's also shared with the researchers. So researchers who are developing software as part of their work can use GitLab collaboratively through this subscription. All right, another quiz. What do DOIs normally identify? Okay, I'll give it a little more time. I think it's a little too fast for everyone to get in their answers. Yes, excellent. So most of you are familiar. Often if you're looking for an article, it's useful to know the DOI, to be able to find it, to access it. And certainly if you're working with large numbers of articles and you want to compare, are these articles in this database? It's best to have a standard identifier, and we use the DOI for that. Yes, all right. Someone has 2 out of 2 already. So the DOI registration service, normally we think of it as a service from publishers, right? They're registering the DOIs for your journal articles and your conference papers. At KAUST, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, we also started offering a DOI registration service. And this was mostly started from faculty who were submitting articles to journals, and the journals, increasingly, they have this data availability section where they say, the supporting data for your article needs to be in an open database with a DOI assigned to it. And so faculty were looking for what repository they should be putting their data sets in to link to their article. And we decided to offer that as something from the KAUST repository. So, and the DOI can really be useful for identifying any kind of unique work that is only hosted at your university. So we use it for the theses and dissertations, for data sets that are released from our repository, for software, and it makes it so it's more formalized as a type of public release and much more easy to cite it and to use in citation manager tools, for example. All right, next one. This is just a survey. It's not part of the quiz, but we want to know how many of you are already using ORCID ID? All right, so this lines up with what we saw as far as your role, that many of you are faculty, and so that's what we normally see in KAUST, for example, is faculty, postdocs, anyone who has done a publication in the last few years. They normally have an ORCID ID, and this is because many publishers now, at the time when you're publishing an article, they are asking for your ORCID ID to connect to the article. At KAUST, we are also doing ORCID IDs for students, and we are connecting the ORCID ID, for example, to their thesis and dissertation. So ORCID ID, again, it's a free service. It's an open service. Any researcher can go to ORCID and register and get an ORCID ID. So what is the university service that's being provided is this integration service, where if someone is working at KAUST and they connect their ORCID ID to our ORCID integration service, we can send a little affiliation statement to their ORCID record that says, this person worked at KAUST from this date to this date in this position, and the source is KAUST. So it's a way to kind of authenticate that this is accurate information, and it saves people the effort of having to re-enter that information. as well as information about their publications. So we can, when they use the ORCID integration tool and they grant us permissions, then we can push the publication history for that person to their ORCID record. So identifier services really, they help everyone in the scholarly communications cycle. For students, we think it's important for them to have, so for their ORCID ID to be connected to the DOI, for example, of their thesis or dissertation, or DOIs of presentations they've given, of data sets that they've released, or software that they have helped write. And so that as they're starting their career in this ORCID system, that increasingly ORCID is being used by other systems, grant management systems, different profile systems, and it should really help them over time to have this basic information from the beginning of their career attached to their identifier. The same for professors, to be able to keep track of the different publications through different platforms, and to be able to transfer information about your publication lists from one system to another. The ORCID ID and the DOI are really essential for that. It's great for the library to be able to track information and to compare information from different sources about, okay, this source says this list of DOIs is linked to this person, but another source has a different list, and we can compare them much more easily using identifiers. Administrative offices in KAUST also use identifiers. It helps for reporting processes, and one thing we're looking at and hoping for going forward is, because we ask students to create an ORCID ID when they graduate and it's attached to their thesis or their dissertation, then this will be one mechanism we can use to follow these students through their careers. So universities often, they want to know, okay, how many of my alumni are going overseas to work? How many are going to other universities? How many end up in faculty positions at other universities? And as ORCID becomes more widespread, this is hopefully a tool that will be able to answer some of those questions. All right, I don't know how well you can see this, but this is an overly, it looks complex, but it's simplified compared to the reality. But the point of this is to talk about what we do at KAUST to track publications that are coming from KAUST. So there are lots of databases. There's Web of Science, there's Scopus. They all track affiliations. You can go there, you can say, KAUST, what are the publications from KAUST? And you'll get an answer. And it's a good answer, right, from these databases. It's maybe 80% or 90% of all the publications. But the idea is that actually the university itself, we should be able to give a better answer than these databases. We should be able to say, okay, we think we have close to 100%. So to do that, we have to combine information from multiple databases, from Web of Science, from Scopus, from different publishers and services. Then we also have to confirm the relationship to KAUST, the funding from KAUST, the license from the publisher, the policy of the publisher, the availability of a file that can be deposited, and if not, if there's no file that we can deposit under the policy, then we go through the process of contacting the individual authors at KAUST to ask for their own manuscript to upload as a full text file. But this process, it takes quite a lot of investment in time and energy, but it has been valuable in KAUST. One thing we have seen is the appreciation from the kind of simplification of some of the annual reporting for faculty when they are applying for promotion, where one of the things they need to have is the annual report of everything they published that year, and for us to be able to fill that in for them automatically in the reporting process is helpful. Okay, so at the kind of the most recent set of things that we have been working on in terms of this whole scholarly communications workflow and how we can support it better at KAUST is supporting better how people manage their research data. And so this is a huge area that's becoming more and more important. One thing we do through the KAUST library is that we monitor public releases of data sets and software through other repositories. So when we have researchers who publish an article and the software that was developed for that article is released on GitHub, then we have a record that says, okay, this GitHub repository is affiliated to KAUST. The same if they are working on some genome project and they have information about the genetic samples in a public database like GenBank, then we will have a record that, okay, this publication from KAUST has the supporting data set for it in GenBank. And it's just useful for us to know all of the different data repositories and software repositories that our researchers are using, and to be able to give some answers to questions about, okay, how much data is being produced by different research centers and where are they putting it. And I think we don't have yet a good grasp of the whole picture, but we are starting to do some of this. Another service we provide is through this data repository called Dryad, which is a membership where anyone from KAUST can use the Dryad repository, and it's a very useful data repository because it's tied to some journal submission processes, especially in biological sciences, but also in some increasingly more areas. And it also has a mechanism. One thing that researchers often find important is a place where they can release their data set, where it can be only accessed by the peer reviewers, but not released publicly until the article is also released publicly. And that's one thing that Dryad provides that people like. Another thing about research data management is that there are many services across the university that are supporting people with data storage, data analysis, and there's not really, in many universities, kind of a central point that's trying to coordinate these services, and that's one thing we're trying to have a role in as a library in KAUST, is to help coordinate the data support services that are from IT or from different laboratory offices. We also provide training on how to share data, the different platforms that are available, data and software, and also how to cite your own data or other people's software and data, because that's also increasingly important as more researchers, a lot of their work might just be producing a data set. And they want to get the same recognition for producing a data set or a piece of software as they would get if they were actually writing the articles. All right, next, Nivina will lead us into the cutting edge of transformative agreements.
Yeah, we can say transformative agreements are cutting edge, and open access is there, as Muhammad said, like from late 90s, or better to say there is a movement called OE 2020, and this movement was very, and it's still strong in Europe, and it started with big library consortia all around Europe saying like We are paying so much money to publishers, and at the same time, as Mohammed said, we are paying, our authors are paying to publish, so it's called double dipping. We don't want this, so it started with this, and now situation is changing, and we are there, but it's transformation. The goal of all this would be to reach 100% open access, but we are still not there, but we are doing our best. And I must say, KAUST is negotiating agreements directly with the publishers as institution. So maybe your libraries, maybe your universities are the part of consortium. It gives you much strength in these negotiations because you are a better position because there are many universities involved, you know, and you are paying more, so maybe you will have more right to do this. So we can say, like, this is very new to libraries, especially for people who are working with collections and who are thinking about collection development. So traditionally, we were just negotiating our subscriptions with publishers, and then you need to pay this kind of money. These are the terms of agreement, and now it's complicated. It's not like this. Now we have different agreements. Part of the agreements would be read part, it's this traditional subscription part, and part of agreement is this publish part. It means like we have terms for publishing. So in one agreement, you have, we are paying for subscription, and also it could be free or some discount. So maybe we have some number of free articles for our authors from KAUST to published. So I will explain more. So there are hybrid and gold journals in open access environment. Hybrid journals are journals where you can, as an author, you're deciding, do you want to publish open access, or you don't want to, or you just want to have paywalled article. And gold journals are fully open access. If you're published there, it will be open access. So yeah, in our case, authors are deciding on this, but in many cases, funders are deciding. So in European Union, if you want to publish with the European Union money, you need to publish open access. Wellcome Trust, Gates Foundation, there is a rule. So if we are funding your research, you need to publish open access. For KAUST, still, it's not like this. So it's like on authors. They can decide. And I suppose for most of Saudi universities, if funding is coming from Saudi Arabia. So for this, library started to sign these transformative agreements. So adding to these agreements, publishing part. And we must say, as I said already, that the goal is 100% open access, and these agreements are transformative, but this is just a transition. And it doesn't go like so well as it was meant in the beginning, ideas of people who created this, you know, but we are moving forward and things are changing. For the library, what's changing, you know, we need to take care of publishing, we need to support publishing, and we need to know more about this, especially open access publishing, of course. So there are different business models, how publishers are doing this, or some of these models maybe came from the library part, some of these came from publishers, so read and publish is what I already mentioned. So there is this read part, this is paying for subscription, publishing part, we are getting in some cases, so with the same money, we ask like, so ideally, you would pay the same money. And in this money, you will get some, ideally unlimited, but sometimes limited, like 20 articles can be free. So this is what you're getting for this. And in some cases, you're paying additionally, but you're getting unlimited number of articles that your authors can publish. So there are different agreements. So this is read and publish model. This subscribe to open, it's something different. It's like institutions are paying to publishers, like normal subscription, and then this publisher, they commit to open the full portfolio, like all journals they publish or some of the journals to be open access next year. So this is subscribe to open. We are subscribing to the publisher for them to open collections. APC discount, this is that I already mentioned, this is like for gold journals. We have some agreements like 10%, 15% discount. So author is still paying APC, it's article processing charge, but there is a discount. And I must say also in KAUST, we don't have central payment system. If the university or consortium could have central payment system, this is the best solution. Okay, so this is what we did until now. We started in 2019 with 3 read and publish agreements, and it was like only 31 journal covered by this agreement, so not so much, but for us it was like something big because it was a start. 2020 we had a 7 read and publish agreement and 2 agreements. APC discount, what we have, it's with gold open access publishers. These publishers are like relatively new publishers, and they started publishing only open access. Like we have agreements with Frontiers, MDPI. These are famous gold publishers. And 2021, we had 11 read and publish, 2 discounts, and you can see that number of these articles is growing. And what is most important with this, we are saving like hundreds, thousands of dollars to KAUST. And we need to make reports on this. So it's, from this side, it's very important. And also, this open access side, as Mohammed mentioned, it's more impact for the university and also for every researcher. So when we started with this, some of the researchers, they would ask, why would I publish open access? People, they need to know about my paper, they already know, these are my colleagues. But now situation changed. Everybody wants to publish open access. So this is just explanation how we are doing this. This is a cycle, so we need to prepare, then negotiate, that actually we need to manage these agreements, and it's not so easy. Then we have some reports from publisher, and then we are analyzing the situation and going again to this renewal cycle with publishers. So how we prepare for this? This could be different, depending on the university and the goals. And different universities, they have different strategies. So in our case, it started from the library, like a voluntary thing, we wanted to be, so we are very dedicated to open access. It didn't start from KAUST administration, but I know some other universities, it came from administration. They said, we want more impact for our university. And then we will support open access publishing, but we will only support like tier 1, like most impactful journals. So depending on the university, approach could be different. And also what Darrell and Mohammed said, KAUST has open access policy, but this is still green policy. So it's about our repository. We still don't have a policy for a green open access. So it's still a work in progress. So how we started this, we approached our publishers, doing our renewals for the next year, asking all of them, are you offering any kind of transformative agreement? Read and publish, offset, there are different agreements. So if they have it, then we go and check if our authors are actually publishing with this publisher. If not, then if not, we should just think, and sometimes we go and ask research if there is a new publisher. Are you planning to publish with this publisher? What do you think about it? So there is some preparation phase. So how many articles published? How much does it cost? How many of these were open access articles? Then when we have this data, when we decide, yes, we want to go for transformative agreement, we would go and negotiate with the publisher. So it's not that we are doing this on our own. So there are some very helpful tools, and there is one community, and we are active part of this community. It's called ESAC community. ESAC is based in Europe and hosted by, you can say, Max Planck in Germany. Because everything started there, but we are in active communication all the time. If we have some issues, so there are workshops there also that you can attend. They have a website with very useful resources, and also they have a registry with all the transformative agreements in the world. KAUST is also there. So you can go there and register your agreement in this worldwide registry. So as I already said, so you need to have your own strategy, then it will lead how you're doing your negotiations. We have agreements for hybrid journals. Our agreements are read and publish. And also we have, as I said, for only gold, in this case, it's only discount to APC. So we're signing an agreement if our author is publishing with this publisher, he should make sure that there is a discount on this APC. And now we are negotiating, and then what we are looking into. Is there any additional payment that we need to pay, adding to subscription money? If not, great. If there is additional payment, how much is it? How many APC is this? So we need to compare this and then to decide. Also, when it comes to license, then we go to license, and as I said, like there is not like only subscription, there is this publishing part. Then we need to see who are eligible authors, what articles, so sometimes eligible articles should be only research and review articles, sometimes you have conference papers there. This is all negotiable, and it's depending from publisher to publisher. Workflows, it means like, what library is doing in all this? So if I am the author, I submit my paper, and I want to use library funds for this. I want to publish free and open access according to this agreement. So I am the author, I submitting my paper, then this publisher, when I submit my paper, publisher, and when this paper in most of the cases when it's accepted, sending alert email to the librarian, and librarian says, I am approving or rejecting this article to be the part of our agreement. This is how it works. So, and then it goes there. Also, at the same time, there is a workflow between publishers and authors through their system. So it's a little complicated, and there need to be at least one librarian taking care of all this. Okay, so this is a managing part. So it's a little, still it's little difficult because this is not standardized area. So from publisher to publisher, there are different workflows. Some of the publishers, they're just using emails, sending you emails, then you just reply to this email saying yes or no. Some of the publishers, they're using dashboards. Some of them created their own dashboards. Some of them are using CCC dashboard. So ideally, situation would be that all the publishers are using the same dashboard and librarian is working with this, but still it's not like this. So you need to go through all this system to manage your agreements. But it's our daily work, and we think we did great. So it's moving, and it will be, I suppose there are groups working on this, it will be standardized soon. This is because this is important for us, but also for publishers and the authors, to have like one system to work with this system. With this also, I must say, we are promoting our agreements. How we are doing this? Because authors are more and more aware of the agreements, but still they don't know. So they're interested in their work. They're not interested in what library is doing, what is it read and published. So we are trying to simplify this for them. So we created library guide about open access publishing, and they can go there, click on the publisher, and then to see workflow for this specific publisher. This is what from the author side. And also we have like 2-3 times a year announcement, coast-wide announcement promoting these agreements, and but still it's not that all of them know to use this option that they have. So what we are doing, we need to track articles, and repository team is helping very much with this. So repository team for us, librarians working with open access publishing, created the dashboard. Then we can track if something is published, and if we see that it's not in our report, it's not a part of our data for the specific publisher, then we go to the author and ask them, you know that we have agreement, it's free, maybe you paid APC here, so it's work all the time. So you need to track all this data. Then, as I said, publishers are sending reports. These reports are very important for us. And some of the publishers, they just started with open access publishing. So some of them, they're not sending anything. But we are pushing them to do this. Ideally, it would be, if they don't have any, ideally it's a dashboard. Then you go to dashboard, you just check your data, and you know how many articles published, who published these articles, so you have all the data, rejected, everything. if you don't have a dashboard, monthly report would be better than quarterly report. At least you need to have annual report. Here you cannot see, but this is like kind of, this is this CCC dashboard that we are using with 3 or 4 different publishers, and it's good that we have several publishers on the same dashboard. So there you can see there is a billing profile for every publisher, then requests. So requests, they send a request, articles are published, there is a request, a librarian is alerted, and he can reject or approve or reject this request. And also there are nice reports that you can have from this dashboard. So dashboard is the best solution for managing open access publishing agreements. But with more and more agreements, you have more different workflows and more different workflows to work with, and it's really not so easy. Still, it's not so easy. So what we are doing, so we are creating reports also for our stakeholders, for the university. First, they're interested how much we saved with this. Then it's also for us, for our next renewal cycle, to see was our agreement successful. So if we, for example, had or paid additionally for 30 free articles, 30 APCs, and our authors publish only 5, it's not like a successful agreement. Then we need to see what would be our next step and so on. Or with some of the, like ACS is one of our biggest publishers, and we have agreement with them. But we always use these free APCs in like first 3 or 4 years, and we don't have funding for this 8. So this is something that we are working on. So it's something changing, and you need to track these changes all the time. That was all about open access publishing, and as sorry, I just stopped like this. So it's really new and changing area, and as you can see, we started like a few years ago, and things are still changing. And if you are the part of consortia, I think you are in better position, but you need to go there and just to, to say like we have authors who publish, we would like to have read and publish agreements. We would like to have more for our subscription money, okay?
All right, so we had a few quiz questions in the presentation. Now we have just a review questions to make sure we understood everything.
Sorry, we didn't answer, but you will have a little prizes. So for the first 3 winners, for the last questions, right?
Yes.
But all the briefings will be counted.
All right. All right, so head into the quiz. All right, here we go. Hey, let's give you a little more time again. Do we have that many people? But yeah. Right. So this, we just wanted to emphasize, we are all from the library, but really this needs to be a university-wide discussion about, okay, what are the disciplines we have, what are the workflows our researchers have, what are the tools they are using for those workflows, and which ones are we already providing, and which ones do we probably need to provide more support for. So it's something for the whole university to work on. What is the standard open identifier used for researchers? ORCID, yes. So the DOI is used for the research outputs, could be many types of things: publications, theses and dissertations, data sets, software. The Scopus ID is an ID for researchers, but it's tied to the Scopus database, which is a closed subscription database. And then the ROR ID, no one chose it. It's a very new ID, but it's being proposed as and starting to be used as an open identifier for institutions, for universities, for all types of research organizations. Great. Some questions on open access. Exactly, green open access. So there are many forms of open access, but this is kind of the oldest form, and it's the form that's currently most widespread. Exactly. So like what we were talking about with transformative agreements, these are agreements with traditional subscription publishers for publications in traditional subscription journals, but in those journals, specific articles will have an open access license, and that will make it's not an open access journal, but it has open access articles in it, so it's a hybrid. All right, and here we have our winners. Mohammed, you want to give the prizes? Arwa, 6 out of 6, the winner. Can you come down and get your prize? Arwa? And for everyone who's getting 5 out of 6, it's just based on who's faster. So, so Wael Alamudi for second prize and FA for the third prize. I think we just have those 3 prizes. So. Congratulations. All right, thank you everyone for playing. And now Mohammed will take you through some of the actions that we would like to discuss going forward.
All right, thank you guys for being very active, and I'm sure we would have more winners. Unfortunately, we had only 3, to select 3 only. So this is just a summary, and what we think could be an action item, just to think about it. Moving forward, for you as a professors, for libraries, for students. So we just summarize it here, and it's not ordered in any prioritized orders. So you may choose, you may think. It's just the idea is to raise the questions and start thinking about some of the areas that you may want to explore at your institution. For example, like identifying scholarly researchers. And I think we distributed like a worksheet material, and that worksheet material is just for yourself. Just think about it, especially if you are a professors and deans, and providing some kind of these services, or wanted to have some of these services at your institution. So start thinking about, okay, what are the existing scholarly communication services being provided at the university? Can we get them all together in one site, maybe? Can we make it more easy accessible for the students or the researchers? and so on. So I don't want to go read in them like in more details, but these are the next step at a university, at your universities. So we'll share the slides and we'll keep it for you guys to think about them. Also, we would like to think about the collaboration opportunities between universities. And I know that we, with Dr. Ghassan and the library deans, we have been discussing this for almost a year, and we are close to have a collaboration between KAUST Library and King Abdulaziz University Libraries. But we would like to see that also across the kingdom and across the universities, and especially university libraries, to see more collaboration. We share and we could learn from each other, and we can build together. You could see from Nivena especially talks at the end, when she talked about the transformative agreements. She emphasizes several times about negotiation and how hard it is. It's really hard. It's really hard negotiation. And if we go together as the universities and the libraries and requesting the same things, maybe they will listen. Better than just going one university is asking and rest of other universities may not and be interested. So at least aligning our initiatives together is really important. Again, we talked about the identifiers. All of these companies, all of these organizations like ORCID and DOI, they are non-profit organizations, non-for-profit organizations. And they have a consortium as well that can be established within the region or within the country. So universities can jointly together become an ORCID members, and they can get a lot of benefits out of that consortiums. Or to be a consortium for DOI registrations. And again, you will get a lot of benefits with a much, much lower cost for individual universities. And most importantly is knowledge sharing session. And with that, I would like again to thank Dr. Ghassan and KU for inviting us today. And this is what we hope we continue to do in the future. Darryl, this is just a summary of the question. Would you like to highlight? Okay. I think we are now at the Q&A.
So if you have an additional question
Yes.
that hasn't been answered, you can enter it as well now, so we can answer any final questions.
Okay. So we'd like to start with maybe audience questions, and then we can go with written question. What do you think?
Yeah, I think we still have 10 minutes.
Yes, we have 10 minutes for that. So. Okay. Any questions from the audience?
Can we have the email, please?
Sorry?
Can we have the contact information? Email.
The slides, you mean?
No, email. Your email.
Yeah, sure. I think we have it in the last slide, the emails.
I don't think our emails
But
are on the
we will
slide.
be staying after this session together outside, so you are welcome to talk to us, and we will be happy to exchange our emails. I think it was there. Okay. If you don't have questions, we can go with the written question. You need to close the one. Switch one or turn off? There seems to be a synchronization between mics, but Okay.
Thank you very much for the talk. So first of all, it's great efforts that KAUST has put in this initiative in having green open access in the library. So my question is, now when it comes to the manuscript, from my understanding, there are two versions, the author version and also the version in the journal, the publisher version, right? So as a reader now, which, if I read the article from the KAUST library, which version should I be submitting, and I mean citing? Which version should I be citing? And are both versions the same? How does the library make sure that the two versions are similar?
Great question.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, we just to highlight, to develop this open access policy, we worked 18 months with faculty. So it was academic decision, not a library decision or administrative decision. So that was a big question by faculty, how to make sure that even with the green open access, people will continue to cite one version of the articles. So answering your question, yes, you need to cite the final version of the article. And in the repository, when you download any author manuscript, there will be a cover sheet, the first one, that will give you a clear instruction of what you should be citing. And also in the citation that we provide through the repository, we will be linking to the DOI of the publishers. So it will be always citing the one version of the article, the final version of the article. Thank you. I think we have 11 questions in the room, so, okay, 13. So might be some duplication. I think the first question about the integrated database provide a ready-made literature review for any researchers. Nيفينا, would you like to answer this?
Yeah, so sorry, whose is this question, integrated database? What do you mean? Maybe index databases or something? Can integrated databases provide ready-made literature review for any research? I would say there is no database that can provide ready-made literature review. It can help you. You need to go there and do your work and prepare your literature review based on the data from, if you are asking about index databases like Scopus and Web of Science. So these are the tools that you can use for literature review. And sometimes if you want to have better literature review, you should use more than only Web of Science and Scopus. I don't know if I answered this question, but I don't know about the database that can give you like ready-made literature review. If this is possible in future, we are already helping, you know. This is more, for example, for the medicine, you know. In medicine, there are more literature reviews that people are, so other fields, not so much. So librarians are helping with literature reviews, but there is no like one tool that you can, there are two different tools that you're using and the librarian. So yeah, we are helping, but like having like ready-made literature review, because there is literature review, it's not like only the resources that you reviewed, it's also your feedback on these resources, it's also your comment on this. So literature review is all this. It's like, what do you mean by literature review? If only like the list of the resources, yes, it's there. Also with the number of citations, how many times this is cited, how many this is factual, in which journals yet it's there. But if you think of literature review, like writing your own literature review, this would be like your original contribution to this field. This is on the author.
Yeah. So the distinction between, so the creative work and the invention, what is protected by copyright and what is protected by the patent. So if you develop a material and you patent it, and the patent application, for example, part of the agreement that is part of the patent process is the patent application and the description of your invention, of your material or your tool, whatever you invented. This is public, and it's public domain. That patent information, the description of the invention, is not protected by copyright, okay? But can a company go and produce a product with your material and sell it without paying you for your use, license fee for use of your invention? No, they can't. So the patent is protecting the actual use of that invention. So the use of that material, the use of that tool, like if I built a new microphone, somehow it is special and unique, another company wouldn't be able to copy it and make more of those microphones if I had a patent on it. But if I wrote an article about this material that I created and it's published in a journal, other people could still not copy that article and resell it because they would be violating copyright. So I hope that clarifies. The invention is distinct from the description of the invention in your article or something. Okay.
Yeah, a good question. Can we replace publishers by libraries to avoid the impact financial benefits? I think the straight answer is no. We don't want, and we are not, actually intention is to replace publishers by libraries. Everyone is having a different role. I think what we wanted to see is a more collaboration between libraries and publishers. They are very important. They manage an important process of peer review. The whole process of peer review is managed by publishers, but I think there should be consideration of their prices, their subscriptions to the universities. I think it's overpriced in many journals. But it's most important is what we really hope to see is more collaboration between publishers and libraries. Okay, maybe that's another related question from your experience. How does the high fee amount of open science journals affect knowledge? I would refer you to a UNESCO reports on open access. There is a very good report from UNESCO, and also there is a good agenda by UNESCO on how to support the open access and what they are trying to do. Nيفينا would like to add?
So the general idea of open access is great, but also there are some negative consequences of this, you know. So it's like some of the journals, like in some of, for example, if you want to publish some of the nature journals, APC could go to $12,000 for one article. So it's really too high, you know. So it's like open access as a movement is a great thing, and the idea is like opening collections for people to be available and also helping our researchers avoiding this paying double dipping. All these ideas are great, but it's not like that all that's going on now in this open access field is great. So things are still changing. So this is that I want to say, like not all what happens with open access is like this more paying for higher and higher APCs, and also some of the publishers, they are making more and more journals open access, which is great to be open, but it just raises prices. So this is also one of the issues that we are dealing with.
Oops. Let me see how to go down. Oh, I think that's because it's a thumbs up. Let's see if I can Okay. And now we will go from oldest to newest. How's that? Okay. So of KAUST services, what is available for people who are not affiliated with KAUST? As far as, yes. So we have the things that are available from the library website are available, but if it's something subscribed to from a publisher, it's only, we only pay for access for KAUST people. So we can provide some other guidance and you can ask us questions, but as far as the subscribed resources are just for the KAUST people. For items under embargo in KAUST repository, how can these? Yes, so when a student writes their thesis or dissertation, they can embargo it for a year. Normally they're working on publishing the research in other ways and they want to protect it. And so if you want access to it, there is an option when you see that embargoed thesis to request access, and the request actually goes to the student. So you can write there why you want this access now, and you can't wait a year to access this thesis, and then it's up to the student to decide if they want to let you have a copy early. Yes, so I'll go on to the next one. I'll just try to rush through them, I guess. So why some journals have one access method and others are open access, it's really a question of the business model. So journals generally, they're providing the same basic set of services to authors. Some provide a bit more, some provide a bit less, but they're managing the peer review, they're providing some editing, they're providing some other services as well. But how are they getting paid for the service? Are they going to get paid through the library or get paid directly by authors? That kind of determines what method, what business model they use, determines what method they will use for access. How can Saudi universities, researchers, and students get access or use the facilities? I think we answered already. Do you have anything more to say there?
For accessing the facility and services, there are other sites in KAUST. For core labs, for example, if you want to use genomic core labs in KAUST or supercomputing in KAUST, they do have these services as shared. You may request it. I'm not sure what is the link for it, but this services is available for Saudi universities. So you visit KAUST website and you'll find an instruction of how to request access to KAUST facilities.
Yes. I think the last two we answered already, so if there's... okay, the last one.
So who is supposed to be responsible for negotiating with journal regarding agreement in the university? So in a case, if you're the part of consortium, maybe it's centrally negotiated from there. Maybe your university is not doing this. So universities, maybe if you are, for example, part of Saudi Digital Library, I don't know how their model works, but I suppose, you are just getting your resources. People from Saudi Digital Library are negotiating, not your university. But you have a voice there, I suppose, then you can ask them, for example, for these transformative agreements.
All right. I hope that we were able to answer all the questions, but if we miss your question, we apologize, and please feel free to raise it now or later. We will be around throughout the day. Thank you again. Thank you very much for your time, and it's been a pleasure to be with you today.
Thank you, Muhammad. Thank you, Naveen. Thank you, Derek, for the presentation. Let me start with the last one, who's responsible for the negotiation. Yes, it may go through the Saudi Digital Library, but we are working hard in King Abdulaziz University to make it along with the publishers, because it's a separate agreement as well along with the publishers. We may started this negotiation about the open access before 3-4 years, But it's easy and simple when you see it in a nice presentation like this. But when you start to work in live, it's more complicated in our scenario because we are dealing with more than 8,000 staff members and researchers, which is make it more complicated in our case than chaos. But we are going through it, and inshallah soon we will have our only open access as well for the digital repository for King Abdulaziz University. Thank you again for the presentation, and I think now we're going to have the break. The next session is going to be start at 11:30. What time we start? At 11:30. So we're going to stay at the same room, then there is no break. Sorry for that. So we're going to start in 5 minutes. Thank you. Sorry, yesterday we couldn't have Dr. Niveen and Daryl with us. So if you allow us to يعني نكرمهم بشيء بسيط من جامعة الملك عبد العزيز. So if you, Muhammad, if you help me to introduce. Muhammad, you were with us yesterday.
Dr. Naveen, thank you. So Dr. Naveen is our senior subject specialist, and she's leading the librarians liaisoning with the faculty. Okay. And my colleague Darrell Grenz, he's the repository lead, and he's developing a lot of these amazing tools that you have been seeing. شكرا يعطيكم العافية.